So it is officially winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. Just a few days ago, we passed the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. So the days are getting longer, but they're still going to be cold. Now, in the last episode of the Dispatches from the Forest podcast, I talked about snow leopards, a species that specializes in surviving in cold environments. For this episode, in honor of the official start of winter, I want to tell you about another animal that thrives in cold, harsh habitats. A bird this time, the ptarmigan. Now there's 23 species of ptarmigan worldwide, but today I'm going to focus specifically on rock ptarmigans and willow ptarmigans because, well, first of all, they're very similar. And second of all, their ranges overlap, so they might sometimes hybridize with each other. But whatever species we're talking about, you won't ever hear a ptarmigan go to the bathroom. For the same reason, you can't hear a pterodactyl go to the bathroom, because the P is silent. Yeah, okay, I know, it's an old joke. But the word ptarmigan is actually derived from a Scottish Gaelic word, ptarmichan, which I'm probably mispronouncing, and I apologize for that. But that was the name for willow ptarmigan, also known as red grouse in the northern British Isles. The P was added to the name because early ornithologists just kind of assumed that the word had Greek origins, and, well, it stuck. But the genus name for these birds, Lagopus, is Greek, and it translates as hare-footed. That's H-A-R-E. A reference to their feathered legs and toes, which make them look very rabbit-esque, and something we'll get into in a little bit. So let's take a closer look at some hare-footed Arctic birds with a silent P, the ptarmigan. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara, and this is the Dispatches from the Forest podcast. Okay, let's start by describing the birds that we're talking about. Ptarmigans are stocky, chicken-like birds. They're in the grouse family and similar in size and shape to other grouse that you might already know about, like the sharp-tailed grouse. Both rock and willow ptarmigans are masters of camouflage. In the summer, they're an intricate, mottled mix of brown, gray, and red. Willow ptarmigan, though, are generally lighter in color, cinnamon brown instead of dark brown, and rock ptarmigan are slightly smaller than their willow cousins. Males of both species have fleshy red combs over their eyes that they display during the breeding season. In the winter, willow ptarmigan are entirely white, while rock ptarmigan are entirely white except for a red eyebrow and black outer tail feathers. But one way to distinguish winter rock ptarmigan from winter willow ptarmigan is by habitat. The rock ptarmigan prefers more barren habitats at higher elevations. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, both species have feathered feet that look almost rabbit-like, hence the genus name Lagopus or hare-footed. These feathered feet help them walk on deep snow like snowshoes, and also to dig burrows and tunnels in the snow that they use to shelter from severe cold. Kind of like making an igloo. Because both species live where it's often cold, even sometimes in the summer. These ptarmigan have a circumpolar distribution. The rock ptarmigan in particular breeds as far north as there is land. Willow ptarmigan nest in subarctic and subalpine habitats where there's abundant shrubby vegetation, usually at elevations below 6,000 feet, 1,828 meters, favoring flat, moist areas over steep, dry slopes. In autumn, willow ptarmigan in western North America move upslope, often to sites above 6,000 feet, where they molt into their white winter plumage. These areas are drier and stonier than their breeding habitats, which they often return to after they complete this molt. In the central and eastern parts of Canada in autumn, willow ptarmigan, especially females and young of that year, migrate southward into the boreal forest for the winter. But there's a lot of local variation in these movements. But willow ptarmigan are known to form large flocks in the winter, and where food is plentiful, these flocks can number well over 2,000 birds. Rock ptarmigan nest in Arctic and alpine tundra, especially at higher and drier parts of the tundra with abundant lichen, mosses, and rocks, hence the name. In the more southerly part of their range, rock ptarmigans are largely sedentary, but Arctic nesting populations may migrate long distances, traveling 600 miles, 1,000 kilometers, or more. Interestingly, while willow ptarmigan males molt into their summer plumage before courting, male rock ptarmigan stay white until they finished courting. So during courtship, the male is a conspicuous white spot against the brown tundra, visible from hundreds of meters away. The female sitting on the eggs, however, is so well camouflaged that she's difficult to spot even 6 feet or 1.5 meters away. After courting, rock ptarmigan males will intentionally dirty their snow-white plumage to be less visible to predators until they've molted into that safer but less dashing brown plumage. So let's talk about ptarmigan courtship for a minute. Both species are highly territorial in the spring. Territories for willow ptarmigan range from 3 to 20 acres, while those of rock ptarmigan tend to be larger, 10 to 100 acres. Conflicts between neighboring males are usually resolved with threat displays rather than actual combat. At territorial boundaries, rivals square off and walk or run parallel to each other, very close, stretching their necks, fanning their tails, and displaying those fleshy red combs above their eyes while uttering gruff, barking calls. Females arrive on the breeding grounds about 2 weeks later than the males. Once the males have mostly settled territorial boundaries, the females, who have been watching singly or in small groups, walk through the territories to inspect the males, while the males engage in courtship displays. To be honest, courtship displays don't look that much different than the territorial threat displays. Courtship displays involve fanning and flicking the tail, spreading the wings, bowing, parading, erecting the eye combs, and drumming the feet. Rock ptarmigan males also perform spectacular what are called flight song displays, in which they fly high in the air, as high as 260 feet or 80 meters, then begin a gliding descent with tail fanned and keeled upward, wings bowed downward, and eye combs extended, all the while giving a staccato song. On landing, the male struts, fans the tail, drops the wings, and continues singing. Females usually select a mate and his associated territory within just a few days, and unsurprisingly, they tend to pick males with larger combs and more energetic displays. Although that said, in North America, most willow ptarmigan pair with the same mate in consecutive breeding seasons. Now, as you might have already guessed, ptarmigan nest on the ground. With rock ptarmigans, both males and females make shallow scrapes in the barren, often very exposed, stony, dry tundra, or in natural depressions next to rocks. Ultimately, it's the female who selects the nest scrape, but it's usually one of her own. And fellas, there's a lesson in there somewhere. She deepens and shapes it with her feet until it's 1/2 inch to 2 inches deep, 1.25 to 5 centimeters, then lines the scrape with her own feathers, moss, lichens, and grasses from the immediate surroundings. Willow ptarmigan also nest on the ground, but they seek out shrub thickets, generally willow, fir, or birch, often with overhanging vegetation. Their nests tend to be deeper than their rock cousins, averaging about 4.5 inches or 11.5 centimeters. Clutch size can range from 3 to 14 eggs. In both species, only the females incubate the eggs, which takes about 3 weeks. Now, like most ground nesting birds, the young are precocial. Their eyes are open when they hatch, and they're covered in dense down. Think chickens or ducks. They leave the nest with their mother less than 12 hours after the last egg hatches. But the role of the male differs between these two species. Rock ptarmigan males abandon their territories and gather into small flocks just before the eggs will hatch. Willow ptarmigan males, however, stick around to protect the female and the brood. They are, in fact, the only species of grouse where the male does this, staying with his mate and then young for a total of about 7 months. After the young fledge and the adults complete their molt, rock ptarmigan in the northern part of the range gather into flocks for migration. In some places, the birds will divide up according to age and sex. These flocks may fly very high during migration, sometimes over large expanses of water and sometimes in darkness. With willow ptarmigan, after the young fledge, adults in some areas move upslope to molt into their winter plumage at higher elevations, and in some cases they return to the breeding territories to feed until winter weather compels them to migrate south, or at least to a lower elevation. Now, currently, both of these species are considered to be low concern as far as conservation goes. Both are considered to be common and widespread across their range. But that said, given their Arctic habitat, these birds can be challenging to study. For example, they're too far north for studies like the North American Breeding Bird Survey to really track population trends. And both are hunted for food around the globe, with hunters taking over 1 million per year. But again, there hasn't been any sustained studies on the impact of hunting on either bird. But as is the case with any organism adapted to life in subarctic and Arctic habitats, climate change could have a significant negative impact on this region in the future, and consequently the populations of these species. Okay, final fun fact. When willow ptarmigan get together in groups, they've been observed playing with each other. One bird often starts the play by extending and bobbing its head, then jumping around willy-nilly, flapping their wings alternately. And I want to state right here for the record that the description willy-nilly came straight from the Cornell Ornithology Lab's All About Birds website. So that is apparently the official scientific description of this behavior. Other birds join in, performing similar antics. This type of play is thought to help sharpen motor skills and or help form bonds within the social group, as it does in some mammals. And on that note, feral friends, I want to wish you all a joyous Yule, Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas. Whatever you choose to celebrate this time of year, I sincerely hope that it's filled with peace, love, and happiness. If you'd like to send a little Yuletide cheer my way in the form of support for the podcast, that would be fantastic. Here's how you can do that. Become a patron. Subscriptions start at just $5 a month, and with 3 paid months, you get free Dispatches from the Forest merch. Find all the details at patreon.com/dispatchesfromtheforest. You can donate through either PayPal or Venmo using my email address, dispatchesfromtheforest@gmail.com, which of course is also the best way to contact me if you have any questions, comments, or a request for a future episode. You can donate using the Cash App if you prefer, with the hashtag ForestNerd. If a check is more your style, just send me an email. I'll let you know where to send it. Go check out the merch store at cafepress.com/shop/dispatchesfromtheforest, then click on products and find something you like. Finally, you can follow Dispatches from the Forest on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara, reminding you to go outside and get dirty. The Dispatches from the Forest podcast is a production of Dispatches from the Forest and may not be used or rebroadcast whole or in part without express written permission.